Well, hello. My name is Susan. I am your host. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us once again on another one of our podcast episodes. I just want to encourage someone on today and let you know that there is an unexpected blessing on the other side of your obedience. I don't know who this is for, but I'm here to let you know that God is ready to release bountiful blessings in your life. But I need you to understand that your blessings are connected to your obedience, and your obedience is connected to your faith. But how does the simple obedience manifest bountiful blessings? What are some things that can challenge you from obeying the voice of God? So join me right now as we talk about the word obedience. Well, how many know that God's promises of blessings are always contingent upon following his instructions as well as keeping his commands? In the book of Luke, chapter 11, verse 28, it lets us know that blessed are those who hear the word of God and obey it. So obedience is the key that unlocks God's treasure of blessings in your life. Your obedience to God will reflect your love for God, and it will reflect where your heart is. So how many know that it's easy to tell God how much we love him, but if our actions does not match our words, then we're operating in a form of deception. And so we obey God because we love God, not because of the blessings that precede your obedience. See, we don't obey to receive from God. We obey because we love God. 1 Samuel 15 and 22 says that obedience is better than sacrifice. So how many of we can sacrifice so many things to God? We can sacrifice our time, our money, and our efforts. But those things does not touch the heart of God the way that our obedience does. You see, God will test your obedience to measure your love for him. He'll test you to measure your heart posture. God will test your character. He'll test your motives to see your integrity. He'll test you to see if you're going to wait on him or if you're going to run ahead of him. He'll test you through difficult seasons. He'll test you to see if you'll trust him. He'll even test your attitude to see if you'll snap under pressure. See, God will test your faith to see if you're going to step out in faith, even if you can't trace his footsteps. So I want you to think about this for a minute. When Jesus came on the scene, his only focus was to obey and to fulfill the will of his Father. But what if Jesus would have focused on all he had to go through? What if he focused on the pain? What if he focused on the beatings and the betrayals and all he had to endure that came along with his will to obey and to fulfill the will of his Father? If he did not focus on wanting to obey his Father, he would have never made it to the cross. So your obedience is connected to your blessings. But even more than that, your obedience is connected to blessings that will surpass you and run down to your next generation. See, it's not enough to just run the race, but it's our mission to pass the baton to our next generation. When you think of a relay race is not necessarily won by the team who runs the fastest, but they win when they have successfully passed the baton. Don't think that the blessings of the Lord is just for you, but understand that your obedience will release blessings that will run down to your seed. So every time, think about this, every time you disobey God, you forfeit something being passed down to your seed and to the next generation. Think about that for a minute. So I'm going to share with you two things that can come to try to challenge your obedience. The first one is fear. Fear is Satan's primary weapon that will keep you from obeying the voice of God, because fear will suffocate your faith and rob you of your peace. Fear will keep you focused on everything else than what God is saying. But 2 Timothy 1:7 says that God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The second one is doubt. Doubt is another one of Satan's weapons he uses against us to keep us from obeying the voice of God. You see, the enemy knows your weaknesses and he knows your insecurities. And so what he does is he will wait until you let down your guard, giving him access in order to plant that seed of doubt in your mind. See, all it takes is an open door. But that's why Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, because everything you do flows from it. So when he finds that open door, he'll begin to tell you everything that counteracts what God just told you. Because he knows that if he can shift your thinking, that doubt will infiltrate through your heart. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to speak doubt. And when you speak that doubt, it'll now begin to enter into your ear gate. And before you know it, you'll begin to believe the very lie that you just spoke out of your mouth from the enemy. 2 Corinthians 10:4-6 says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to pull down those strongholds and to cast down those imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and to bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So God, through his word, is showing us how to defeat the enemy when he comes up against us through fear and doubt. So now we don't have no excuse to why we cannot obey God, right? So sometimes God will challenge us to do something that does not make sense, because he can already see what's on the other side of our obedience. We can sometimes miss the timing of our blessing because we spend so much time trying to understand what God is doing. But how many of you know that his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts? But what God does, he will wait on us because he loves when we obey him, even when we can't trace him. He loves to hide himself when it's time for us to take the test. You see, in school, the teacher is always silent when it's time for the test, because the teacher already taught the lesson. The test is to see if you understood the lesson. The test is to show the teacher how much of the lesson was comprehended. So in a nutshell, we grow as we go. The more we obey God, the more our faith increases. And God will allow us to continue learning who he is as we continue to obey him and journey with God. Well, that's all for now. Let this encourage you to obey God so that the blessings of the Lord will be your portion. Well, until next time, be blessed.